Patience, please. There is still one more week to go until the game, so any and all questions to Ohio State about that are just not going to work with Ryan Day and Jim Knowles right now. Welcome to Snap Judgments. They're brought to you by Buyers Auto. It's Bill Landis, Jeremy Birmingham. I'm Austin Ward. They have to get through Minnesota first. That's where the attention is. Everything else, no matter how many times, how many different ways it's asked, you're not going to get a direct answer about Michigan yet.
No.
Or the matchup game.
The matchup game that is 2 weeks from now. Nor should we, I guess. There's an important point, I think, made during Ryan Day's time at the podium, that now is the time of year that you want to be playing your best football. I think they took a really nice step in that direction against Michigan State, and they need to take another one this week against Minnesota for you to feel confident in their ability to play their best when they do go up to Ann Arbor in 2 weeks. So I'm fine with the laser focus on the Gophers this week, even if it is not the most compelling game on the schedule.
If you put a laser on a Gopher, I don't think they like that.
Wait a minute. What if the Gopher if the Gopher's wearing the laser, would you like it?
Caddyshack would be a very different movie.
I don't want to be lasered by a Gopher.
That'd be terrifying.
It'd be kind of awesome.
Yeah.
Honestly, cool. It's a reminder. A press conference like that with Ryan Day when Jim Knowles is a reminder of how very different the media's job is than the coach's job. Because our job is to talk about
We should
Michigan.
swap Freaky Friday for 1 week.
Our job is to talk about
We could have done it last week.
Our job is to talk about Michigan.
Well, Minnesota might do so.
And their job is to say, don't talk about Michigan. So everyone is like, oh, but what about Michigan though? What about that? Look over there. And the coach is like, stop. But I think that it's good practice for these guys to understand that this game matters. If you go back even a year ago, now that's a little different. It's at home. It's not on the road at Maryland. They played like crap the week before Michigan last year. They have not played particularly well the last couple of years the week before Michigan. So I think it's important to make sure that this team is ready for that. And Minnesota, despite the fact that they're not very good, is an interesting matchup for maybe what they do best is what Ohio State does worst. I think there's at least a potential for them to make it an annoying game for 20 minutes. Which will get people feeling restless. So,
Wait, what is it that Ohio State does worst?
Stop the vertical run game.
I don't know that there's much evidence to support that.
I mean, I don't know, 250 yards against Rutgers would be the support, I guess.
45 were on a trick play.
Okay, so 205 yards against Rutgers.
It was fewer than that.
It was a lot of yards against Rutgers. And Minnesota, all they really do is try to run the ball, and you're going to be without probably Michael Hall based on what we heard today. We still don't expect to see a full complement of Tommy Eichenberg. You still are without Lathan Ransom. There's an opportunity for Minnesota to at least muck it up a little bit to slow things down. Now, will they come out and crap the bed like they did against Purdue? Hopefully, but I mean, you can't expect that. You can't expect it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Fair. I think I like Ohio State's rush defense's chances against Minnesota personally, but I guess we'll find out on Saturday at 4 o'clock. And it will be tied a little bit to the injury report. We can dive into that. Lathan Ransom will not be back for the rest of the regular season. I don't know. There's not been too much dancing around about that. That timeline and a medical procedure did change from what we initially thought with his timeline. So Ohio State's had a couple of weeks to maneuver things around. Should be getting Josh Proctor back to help with some of that in the secondary, maybe by this weekend, and another senior day for him. Tommy Eichenberg is
his third one.
He
walked twice.
I think he's got 6 of them. I don't know, but we'll see. You get as many as
you
you
ever
want.
use the flowers? You get new ones every year.
Those are dead. So they don't last.
Rest in peace.
Yeah, to some real ones. Tommy Eichenberg, as Berm said, we'll see how much he needs to play on Saturday against Minnesota. And then Mike Hall left pretty early on. I think he finished with just 10 snaps, somewhere between 10 to 13.
I think it was 10. I think
yeah.
Right, yeah.
So a short day for him. I saw him go to the locker room in the second quarter. And Berm asked, and I'm not really entirely sure. It looked like maybe he just kind of got folded up and rolled up on. I don't know the nature of that injury.
The response from Ryan Day was somewhat...
It wasn't encouraging.
It was somewhat ominous.
Yeah, and I mean, Jim Knowles didn't try to pretend like they were going to have him this week when asked about backup defensive tackles.
Yeah, so that's another situation for Ty Hamilton to get more reps, which he was the second highest graded Ohio State defensive lineman, second highest graded defender, according to PFF on Ohio State. And number 1 was Hero Kanu. So another opportunity for him to step forward. Looks like the offense pretty much healthy as can be, but there may still be a personnel question on that side of the ball, Bill.
Yeah, so we got into the center stuff. I asked Ryan Day a couple questions about it. I wanted to, get like, why'd you guys play Matthew Jones there? And he said, they wanted to get him some work there. They had used him at center in practice. And like we've heard that throughout Matthew's career, he's just never done it in the game. Someone asked me, did he play center in 2020 against Michigan State? Harry Miller started at center in that game in 2020 against Michigan State. Matt Jones played left guard, I think, in that game. So to our recollection, he has never done it before prior to playing the 10 snaps at center against Michigan State. And Ryan Day just kind of chalked it up to wanting to get him some work there. So then I tried to follow up with like, what's your evaluation of center, and was any of the thought process of playing Matt Jones at center, maybe you want to shake this up and make a change to center? And he didn't say no. He didn't say yes, but I felt like I gave him the opportunity to emphatically state that the status quo was the status quo on the offensive line, and he didn't do that. So I don't know that I'm like on alert for a change to be made there, but it does feel like the door is like slightly ajar. I don't know. What do you guys think?
It felt like he was trying to suggest at first that the reason Matthew Jones moved over was to get Enoch Mamahi some reps. Like, we had to get Enoch in there, no big deal. But then, like, the second part of the question, which was, what's next? Oh, we're constantly evaluating. Right now, there's not, like, right now, he kept saying it. We're gonna keep going with what we've been doing. Like, it didn't feel emphatic, to your point. Like, it seemed like a guy who was willing to say, well, we're looking ahead and seeing that there's 3 really big defensive tackles coming down the pike in 2 weeks, and we need to maybe be at least considering what's best for the offense.
And that may well mean that they don't make that change. I mean, I think Ryan Day sort of got to that point where he was talking about Carson Hinsman and saying that every week was an investment and the future is bright. But the long term doesn't help you win a national championship or win in Ann Arbor in a week and a half. So,
that's the thing. Not every investment win. Like, it may win long term, but it doesn't win.
Yeah, I think we all think Carson Hinsman's going to be a good player here, right? It's just like maybe he was thrust into the job a little too early, and part of that is how the roster was constructed. Like, they didn't have Luke Whippler leaving early, and it's not like Matthew Jones would have been a slam dunk at center, and even he played 10 snaps. We're not saying he would be if they made the switch, but they didn't have many great options. So I understand how they arrived on picking Carson Hinsman to start the season, but maybe it's not the best move moving forward with what's coming against Michigan.
Yeah, and again, it's not just as simple as, it'd be great if it was, is Matthew Jones better at center than Carson Hinsman? We don't know. The coaching staff has decided that's not the move that they've wanted to make through 10 games, but what does that mean if you move Matthew Jones out of guard and move to center? Do you feel better or worse if that's Enoch Mamahi, which he is the next guy in line, whether, we've talked about Tegra Shabola or Luke Montgomery getting playing time this year. Clearly, if there's a plan B, it's Matthew Jones at center and Enoch Mamahi at guard. Where do they view the comparison between leaving Carson Hinsman in the lineup or putting Enoch Mamahi in their guard? We have seen that, and we saw that in the game last year, and it wasn't perfect.
Didn't go well. Yeah, he played. I think Enoch got 2 series, and then who was the defensive tackle last year? He was like a very high draft pick. Mozzie Smith juked Enoch out of his shoes, got a sack, or hit C.J. Stroud, and that was the end of Enoch Mamahi's time, and Josh Fryer played the rest of that game. So, yeah, it's a point worth making that if they actually are entertaining changes, there's no guarantee that changes will work. I find it interesting because I think they are entertaining them. It's just, I'm not telling you that that's what they said. That's how I view the situation. I don't think you would have done that last week if you weren't entertaining the idea. Whether or not it pushes
the more natural option would have just been to bring Vic Cutler
which
in.
they did after that.
Right. Or Jacob James.
Or Jacob James.
Or just leave
the
Carson Hinsman at center and play Enoch at guard.
In.
Yeah, because he's progressing and he's younger than everybody. He needs more reps than anyone else in that line does. But they didn't do that.
That is the weird part when you're talking about, he's the young, because Ryan Day said that for Carson Hinsman, meant it as a defense. Like, he's the youngest one. All right. Well, Matthew Jones doesn't need reps. Yeah. He's only going to be here for
he's 45 years old.
2 more regular season games, and then whatever's beyond that. I don't think you're trying to develop him anymore.
No, I think we can all read between the lines of this is at least in consideration.
Yeah, no change guaranteed, but watch that space, I guess.
Yeah, Berm, what were you looking for today?
I really just wanted to see what Ryan Day thought about the offense and where it's going. I didn't really get a chance to hear much about. I think the importance of developing another outside weapon right now, or getting one in the rotation more regularly, is super important for Ohio State over the next 2 weeks. They kept he mentioned Emeka Egbuka and how he's stronger this week than last week, stronger. And that's what they're trying to do. They tried to force him the ball early in the game on Saturday against Michigan State, and it just didn't work. Some of it was timing. Some of it was a snap off of Carson Hinsman's butt that threw a playoff. Some of it was just a pass interference. I think they're really wanting to get Emeka going this week. And so I think that you're going to see the offense really gear around him this weekend. But I'm interested in the evolution of the offenses, how they are going to go away from just Marv. Like, Marv is great. He's the best player in America. But you have to have a guy that is open elsewhere other than just him sometimes. I mean, Cade Stover's done a great job with it, but there has to be another wide receiver that becomes a part of this offense.
Can he be the best player in America if he's not playing for America's team?
I think so. I mean,
What if he's North America's?
North America's team.
Peru? How do they feel about him in South America?
Peru. Your response to that was Peru?
College football hotbed. Peru.
Hey, Peru.
Remember when you used to appeal to Canada?
Peru, how do you feel about Marv Harrison?
Let us know.
What's your vibe?
Yeah.
Vibe check. Peru, Marv. Tell us about it.
Are there a lot of Heisman voters down there in Peru?
I don't know.
Probably.
Probably like one.
Yeah.
But he's probably on the lam.
Yeah. Well, all right. Let's get us back on track.
I just think that something there has to be another guy. Whether it's if Emeka Egbuka cannot get to the 100%, somebody else needs to be that other option on the because
felt like Xavier was becoming that last week.
Yeah, and I like what they do with him, but we talked about it on Monday's rewatch. Like, if you're going to set the split backs and you're going to have Xavier Johnson back there with Trip Chinham, why not put Emeka Egbuka back there and let him do that? Because all those plays were designed with Jackson Smith and Jigba and Emeka Egbuka in mind, so why not put him back there instead? It's just Emeka Egbuka is a potential first-round player in the NFL draft next year. Like, you have to find a way to get him involved in this offense. That's bottom line.
I think some of that was an admission still last week that he wasn't fully at 100%, and Xavier has earned the opportunity to do that. I mean, he's productive when he gets a chance, and when they use him, I think it's important remembering the end of last season and maybe this game in particular that's coming up in a week and a half. Like, it was so
matchup game,
incredibly clear. It's a matchup game. Now, maybe
what's the M's for?
Maybe it was advanced scouting, but maybe it was because every time Xavier Johnson went on the field, everyone in the stadium knew that he was getting the football. I think you have to continue to incorporate him and let him be on the field and do things that Emeka gets to do. Occasionally, that means not touching the football.
Yeah, so the alarm bells don't go off when you try. Yeah.
I'm just at a point where I personally, and this is my opinion, and it means nothing to anyone in this building.
It means everything to me.
I would just rather have Emeka Egbuka where Xavier Johnson is and put Carnell Tate outside. Just do that because that way you get the better weapons out there. I love Xavier Johnson. I love what he does for the program, but he's limited in what he's capable of doing. I mean, he's made big plays in his career, no doubt about it.
He's pretty shifty. He stuck his foot in the ground and juked the defender out of his shoes.
I think that you can get that out of Emeka Egbuka, and then
you absolutely can.
And then still have
you're absolutely right, partner.
And then still have Carnell Tate on the field, or complimenting Julian Fleming and Marvin Harrison. I think you can do all these things.
It's a lot of guys that get on the field.
Yeah, you do it.
You got to have 7 on the line of scrimmage. You got to have 5 offensive line.
12th man, baby.
They actually flag you for that.
Screw that.
This is
or Kirby Smart calls timeout before
second Canada mention can't have.
Did you see that joke on Monday night after the Broncos and Bills game? Mm-hmm. That the 12th man was still helping Russell Wilson. I thought it was pretty funny.
Mr. Worldwide.
That's Russell Wilson?
I don't know. Is it? I thought it was. Isn't that what he yells into the?
That's Pitbull.
Oh, are they both? What does he call himself?
Mr. Russell Wilson.
No, he's got a stupid
Ciara's
nickname.
Husband.
He's got a stupid nickname for himself.
I'm sure he does. I just don't know what it is.
Dangerous?
Dangerous.
No, I don't know. Whatever. Let's ride. What else do you got?
What did Ryan Day say about Russell Wilson today? Sometimes a coach will go up there and say oh, we think we're progressing and we're taking a step forward and you're starting to see our identity, and sometimes I don't really believe it. I kind of believe it with Ohio State right now, with the way that game went, with the way that they've been running the football a little better the last few weeks, and building concepts on top of those runs. I wrote about that a little bit on Tuesday at Rivals about how they used a lot of more play action pass last week, one of them to Xavier Johnson on that 31-yard play. Mm-hmm. I do think that Ryan Day truly feels like they're starting to hit on some things that are working really well for this offense. And part of it is getting healthy. It's getting Trey back a couple weeks ago. It's getting Emeka back to where he needs to be, to Berm's point. But I don't know. I think Doug and I had a conversation about the best offenses in the North on Kings of the North on Monday, and we had Ohio State ranked lower than I think people probably were comfortable with. But of all the offenses really across college football that you could buy some stock in, at least among the national championship contenders, I think I'd pick this one because I do think that they are finding some things to get them back to the Ohio State offense we're accustomed to. I'm not saying they're going to start going out and putting up 45 every game because maybe they're not quite that, but in terms of like being threatening to all areas of the field and finding more explosive plays and marrying the run and the pass together, like I think it's progressing quite well. And I kind of picked up from Ryan Day today that he feels similarly.
Yeah, but if you look at last weekend, they finished 38 points. 45 is easy. They just need to finish. I mean, they didn't try to score in the second half. So
Yeah,
it's
they
not
won
like
drive,
it's not like they're far away from being able to be that offense again. It's just finishing.
There was one the play where like Emeka asked to come out of the game,
Yeah.
and I don't say this as like a critique of Kyle McCord, but like he wanted to get Emeka a touchdown because you're up 30 or 35-3. You can do those kind of things if you want to. Marv was wide open. Like no, they didn't cover him on that play. That could have been your easy touchdown, and then they missed the fade ball there at the end of the end of that drive that led to a field goal. But yeah, when the offense gets to the point where it just decides like, you know what, we're going to try to get this guy a touchdown on this play, things are going pretty good.
It's usually a good sign.
Yeah.
And a month ago, that was certainly not the case for Ohio State. And I do, and probably on Wednesday night when we're back in here for a Woody Wednesday, maybe I'll get it. I wanted to ask Ryan Day how much different the run game has become rather than what he envisioned it being in August. You and Doug have broken this down. You and Berm have talked about it on Rewatch. Like the schemes and the approach and the counters and the misdirection are all very different than what we saw earlier in the year. And I think it's not just Trey. Now Trey's a big part of that. But it was figuring out the best way to use these offensive linemen, what was going to allow them to be in position to open holes and let people run behind them. I mean, in October, when you didn't have Trey doing that and it was Chip and a banged up Mayan, it was wonky. It was broken down. We were talking about them running for 80 yards and suggesting like there's no way that this is going to be good enough. They've come a long way since then. Mm-hmm. It deserves mentioning. Can they still be better? Yeah, of course. But I don't think we're seeing a team that no longer like has any confidence of how it can get a 3rd and 2, or, you know, even if it is going to be more sneaks on 3rd and 1, fine. Like some of these problems I think have been addressed for Ohio State. And if there is still a mentality that from a month ago, this is a limited version, a scaled back version of Ryan Day's offense, I'm not as convinced that that's the case right now. But again, we're not going to know for sure until a week and a half from now, because Minnesota's not much of a test for that, in my opinion.
Yeah, and you are still, I mean, this is a Tuesday press conference where Kyle McCord's name was barely brought up because he played his best game of the year. And I think it's
weird how that works.
It's getting to the point where you're starting to feel comfortable. They are replacing the best quarterback in the NFL right now. This season is C.J. Stroud, so far. To this point.
He's the passing yardage leader.
He's playing incredibly.
He's the best quarterback.
I think Berm's
he's
forgetting
right now
Patrick Mahomes gets one off week.
He's playing better than
He's just trying to make himself feel better than the Bengals lost.
He's playing better than any quarterback in the NFL through 10 weeks. Put on the tape, I'm telling you.
I love CJ.
Check the tape, bro. Cut that tape again.
Cut it on again.
He's playing real well. Yeah, it's good.
So it does take time to get the offense to where I think sometimes we forget, like, you are replacing players every year. It's not like you just get to throw the same guy out there over and over and expect everything to be exactly the same. Like defensively, I mean, Jim Knowles today talked about replacing Tommy Eichenberg. Like, that's a big change up. I mean, you're without Lathan Ransom, then you got to replace Tommy, and then you're talking about maybe no Mike Hall. Like, it's the Buckeyes are finding their stride. It got asked a couple times today, are you playing your best football right now? I think they probably are. So now you just got to keep stacking days, bro.
That's right.
Stacking.
Yeah, because they're at the end of goal number 2, which was to win games 2 through 11. Indiana, the rest of the schedule, and then the matchup game at the end. What an unusual way to set your goals. But this is it. It's a big one. Ohio State is trying to check off goal number 2 Saturday at 4 o'clock in the Horseshoe against Minnesota, which will not have lasers on their helmets. We can promise you that. That's Bill Landis, Jeremy Birmingham. I'm Austin Ward. These have been Snap Judgments. As always, they're brought to you by Byers Auto.